There has never been a more important time to move in a vegan direction. Whether you're ready to start, restart, or re-energize your vegan or plant-based practice, this podcast is for you. I'm Michelle Olander, life coach, vegan, ADHD matriarch, travel lover, and smoothie loather. And I know that it's the details that get in the way of your vegan journey. But I like to believe that the obstacle is always the way. So every week we meet here where I translate the tools of life coaching and Stoic philosophy. I bring you actionable tips, some laughs, interesting guests, and vegan ideas for everyone at any age. All to help you veg your best. Episode 288, the V word, the psychology of saying vegan. You know, when I was first going vegan, kids, I'm talking about 12 years ago when I first really started getting serious, I was actually afraid to say the V word. Have we talked about that here before? You know, I honestly don't remember what is in every episode anymore. But anyway, I was very stuck on saying to anyone that I was vegan because I was afraid that they would point to my pre-existing leather shoes or break into the house and find, down pillows or wool on the beds, or demand to see the ingredient labels on the lotions in my bathroom closet. So honestly, I wasted a lot of time thinking how that the minute I said that word, the V word, it would all begin, the scrutiny, the audits. And if there's one thing I would really very much like to abolish with this podcast and with a wave of my hand, it would be the time that overthinkers like myself waste. Any overthinkers out there? The time we waste on overthinking rather than acting, starting, experimenting. So I felt like the V word was me opening myself up to all the judgment and scrutiny from non-vegans and from vegans. And the plant-based term was just getting traction at that point. So it wasn't really part of my mindset too much. And honestly, I have never really warmed up to the term plant-based because it doesn't really mean exclusively plant-based, which was my aspiration. And it didn't hold the ethical practice part of it that I was aspiring to. So saying the V word, vegan, as I say, was super awkward for me. And I would say, can you make that vegan? Or is there a vegan option? Or, I'm eating vegan or trying to eat vegan. So I would use the word, and it reminds me that a few weeks ago, Athena Kublenyu, from the British author, commentator, comedian, was talking about stand-up. And it took, she said, about 50 shows, about 50 times of standing up and doing her 5 minutes or 10 minutes on stage before it just got, okay, well, that's done. So that's part of it. Part of it is the exposure therapy of saying the V word. But I can see from my vantage point now, this was such a waste of time and energy, and such a waste of the curiosity and all the really positive reasons that I did have to limit or eliminate eating animal products. And if you can relate at all to this, or maybe there is someone in your life or in the periphery of your life that's driving you a little crazy, who has been overthinking this process and the V word, maybe this episode is for you this week. And as I say, it wasn't because I wasn't committed. I was serious. And of course I did worry that I would not be able to keep it up. But mostly it was because I thought that the minute I said I'm vegan, I would be opening myself up to just transnational critique, evaluation, and criticism from everyone, everywhere. Like someone would point at those leather shoes on my feet and say, you can't start until those are all gone. Or demand to see some sort of written declaration of my intentions. And otherwise I would be, facing people that gotcha in the world. Aha, Your Honor, the defendant wants us to go to the effort of preparing her a vegan meal while she still has animal products in her home and car. Okay, do I sound completely unhinged? But I don't think I'm alone in this. And here's the part I wanted you to hear, that I wasn't only afraid of judgment from non-vegans, I was also afraid of judgment from vegans. And I had this fear that I would be exposed as not vegan enough. And I wasted a whole lot of time thinking, if I say that word, that V word, I better be perfect. So today, I want to unpack a couple things. Why saying I'm vegan can feel so loaded. What happens in our brains when it does feel heavy and brings out all our insecurities, and how to say it in a way that protects your energy and keeps you moving forward, even if you're not ready for scrutiny. Because as I see it, consistency, not purity, is the goal that we are moving forward with, because we're going to learn so much along the way. So let's name the fear. A lot of us think that saying I'm vegan is going to trigger a situation like cross-examination. Oh yeah? Okay. Well, what about that sweater? Is there wool in there? What about your belt? Do you have a leather couch in your office? Or debate club, where suddenly the person sitting next to you will become a nutritional expert, or a animal agriculture expert, or a morality expert. And suddenly there are questions that are like, well, what about your protein? But don't lions eat animals? What if your children were going to die unless you ate a rack of lamb? Literally most of us have heard something like those, right? Or the morality story, where people treat your choice like it's a statement about them, like you are criticizing them. And of course, then there is that call that comes from inside the house. You know what I mean? From inside your own brain, that drama of, what if I mess up? What if I'm inconsistent? What if I'm not doing it the way I later find out I should have been doing it? What if I make a mistake? What if I can't live up to the V word? In other words, that word for many of us isn't just a word. It's this marker of identity which seems to have so many rules, and identity markers come with these kind of social consequences that seem to matter to humans. And it's true that your brain is designed to treat social consequences like a matter of life and death. So let's talk about the psychology behind this, because once you can name the pattern, I think it really loses power. Once you understand, like, oh, that's just how brains work. So here's the truth. Humans are wired for belonging for millennia, and anything that threatens belonging, anything that could make you look strange or difficult or not belong, preachy, high maintenance, your nervous system has opinions about that. So if you felt reluctant to say the V word, it's not the V word. It's not that saying the V word actually puts you in some sort of peril. You're just human, and you can tell it carries some freight with other people. And the good news is that there are well-studied psychological reasons that this happens, which brings us to the nerdy part, the geeky part, the behavioral science that makes you feel, I think, makes you feel less crazy when you learn about it. So, ladies and gentlemen, I present the spotlight effect. That's one of the first ones we're going to talk about. And you've probably heard of this, the spotlight effect. It's a very simple idea from social psychology that we tend as human beings to overestimate how much other people notice what we are doing. How much other people are notice we are thinking about what we're wearing or what we've done wrong. We can talk about the researchers. I have it in my notes here. Gilovich, Medvec, and Savitsky. They studied this and found that people think they're much more noticeable than they actually are. We picture ourselves under a spotlight. Maybe that's that term, main character energy. We think we came on stage and everyone's looking, when in reality, most people may notice, but they're busy starring in their own movies. So that's exactly what was happening to me in the beginning. In my mind, saying I'm vegan meant, okay, everybody, now notice me, look at me. Everyone's going to notice the shoes, the pillow, the shampoo. And I'm not saying they won't notice or that they didn't notice. They do. But most people are not thinking about your pillow. They're thinking about their email or their hip replacement or their jobs or their kids or their schedule or their own dinner. So if you take nothing else from this episode, please remember your brain has an evolutionary tendency to exaggerate your visibility. You're just having lunch. You just ordered something. That's it. Now, there is also something in psychology called the do-gooder derogation. Do-gooder derogation. And that's research on what happens when people encounter someone who seems to be choosing a behavior that is ethically motivated, someone making a choice based on principle. And several researchers have studied those reactions, especially of meat eaters to vegetarians. And did people sometimes put down the morally motivated person? Not just because that person said anything or attacked them or criticized them, but because they anticipate feeling judged. So sometimes when you say, I'm vegan, that other person who's there may hear, oh, you think you're better than me? Even when you didn't say that, even when you didn't think that, even when you yourself are feeling very not accomplished and not very far along on your vegan journey, even if you're trying to be kind of cool and casual about it and just bringing it up just so that you don't have ham on your sandwich so you can have something else. But studies have actually shown the phenomenon that it is a self-defense mechanism in people when others' moral behavior threatens one's self-image. So disparaging them a little, even inside their heads, disparaging them a little helps to relieve the discomfort. And you can be vegan and have that same response. I see it all the time where some people are vegan for different reasons, or some people are vegan for the same reasons, but the way they practice their veganism, maybe some people are whole food only, maybe some people are fruit only, maybe some people are no sugar, no oil, or all kinds of reasons. You can start to bring this up in anyone. This is just a human tendency. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It doesn't mean they're bad people. It just tends to happen. So when others kind of trigger you with their moral behavior, and it's kind of illustrating something that you're doing differently, they may tend to debate, they may tease, they may dismiss, they may roll their eyes. You could be someone who has done that in the past. You also, not because you're a bad person, just because you're trying to reduce your own discomfort in a certain moment. It's not really about you. It's just a human truth. That's important. Not every reaction or comment or meme is about you. It's not about me. And a lot of reactions are just about others trying not to feel judged or trying not to think about the choice you're making that is making them think about the choice they're making. You know what I mean? So it's like a permanent 8th grade. And that's one reason the term plant-based sometimes feels safer to say, I think. It does kind of do an end run around those, the ethical connotations of vegan and vegetarian. It doesn't carry quite as much implied moral meaning in the wider population. And of course, that's a little bit why I don't respond that well to it, because when I am trying to move better and better and more intentionally in to make compassionate, ethical choices in all aspects of my life, the best that I can, it is for the ethical aspiration. There's another concept. So we've talked about spotlight effect and the do-gooder derogation. Third concept, internalization. This is from the ideas of self-determination theory, and it explains how behaviors become stable over time for us, and change. Research shows that change tends to last when it becomes fully integrated, when it feels aligned with your values and your identity, when 3 psychological needs are supported: autonomy, competence, and relatedness. Autonomy, competence, relatedness. Autonomy means it feels like your choice. It's not something you're doing because you have to. Competence. It's when you feel capable of it. Relatedness. That's when you feel connected by it, not isolated by it. So if veganism feels like constant pressure, constant scrutiny, you're not that good at it yet, your nervous system is going to resist because it feels unsafe. But you can't develop that autonomy, competence, and relatedness until you start. So when veganism starts to feel like, oh, yeah, I chose this. This was an idea that meant a lot to me. I can do it. It's getting easier. I've learned a lot of how to make it better for myself. And I belong with certain people while I'm doing with this. I feel connected while I'm doing this. Then the identity, then the whole process becomes calmer. It doesn't happen for many of us overnight. It takes a while for it to start to feel more natural and a little bit less performative, like there are rules you need to check off for everyone to agree on. So this is why I think early veganism can feel like a performance. All right, so what do we do with this? If the word vegan, the V word, feels too loaded in some situations for you, you're not alone, you're not weird, you're not unserious, you're not ethically wavy. You are allowed to be strategic and practice. So you could try on another statement like, oh, I just don't eat animal products. Or I'm vegan, no stress, I'll find something, don't worry. You can start just saying other words like, well, I'm trying to see how it is other people eat vegan, if that's true for you. Or I'm just keeping it plant-based for today, or this week, or this month. See if one of those fit and kind of desensitizes you when the V word gets caught in your throat. And remember, this is not for someone else's comfort. Don't get me wrong. You're not doing this for other people to feel so much more accepting of your choice. You're doing it to keep yourself regulated while you're learning, while you are leaning in, while you are developing strategies and tactics. We've talked about the difference between those two things. I won't talk about it here. But to develop them, you need to stay in the game, And that's why we want you to have tactics that help you show up every day and learn and get the feedback and tweak what didn't work well and take a little victory lap for the things that did work well. So it's not lying or trying to make yourself acceptable to others. It's choosing language that supports your own autonomy and competence and connection. So this week as you're vegging your best out in the wild, if you start to feel that flush of self-consciousness or dread that someone is thinking something, remember, your brain is likely overestimating how much people are thinking about you, and that's the spotlight effect. And the other person may be protecting themselves from feeling judged. That's the do-gooder, derogation effect. And science shows that this gets easier and easier when you support your autonomy and competence and belonging. And that, honestly, that is what we're doing here at Veg Your Best every week, creating content to just kind of walk along with you, remind you, bring different ideas to help you fortify your plant-based or your vegan practice. Because when we're really challenging ourselves, when we are putting ourselves out there, it doesn't matter how. If you're trying on a new career or a new language or a hobby or a sport, or you're in a new social group, it doesn't matter. That awkward feeling is not because there's anything wrong with you. And if it's your vegan journey that's challenging you, it's not that a plant-based practice is so different than any other new aspect of your personal development. How you go vegan? Can you finish the sentence already? How you go vegan is how you do anything worthy. But we are, all of us, so tempted to blame ourselves as undisciplined or lacking in follow-through, or else decide that we don't have the support or the situation in life, that a vegan lifestyle is just too hard or unsustainable. But I believe that the real story of veganism today is not some kind of one-size-fits-all activism. I really think that the story of veganism is normalizing what it looks like to go out in the world and make more and more day-to-day choices based on kindness and sustainability and social justice and public health. So if it feels hard, that's just because we're humans. We're humans. We're humans who have been conditioned to look the other way. But you know the antidote, right? You know. You just veg your best. Veg Your Best podcast production, music, and editing by Charlie Weinshank. Thanks, Charlie. Before you go, it would mean so much to me and the Veg Your Best team if you would hit subscribe, leave us a 5-star review, or share with someone you think might be interested. Something about algorithms, it helps bump us up a little in the rankings, and that's the best way to help others find the podcast and for us to find our audience. So, until next week, make it easy and veg your best.